A multidimensional financial services company, Providence Partners serves the needs of independent insurance, financial, and employee benefit professionals. The team at Providence Partners serves other business professionals like property and casualty agencies, registered investment advisors, community banks, and benefit brokers to assist in their clients' risk management planning. Whether an individual or business owner client, this planning includes income replacement protection, planning for extended healthcare costs, family needs, and generational transfers of wealth. At Providence Partners, we give you access to industry specialists. Those specialists focus on business succession, business owner planning, family and household protection, estate planning, planning for that income loss, or planning for long-term care solutions. Providence Partners is an Alabama-based company. We have offices in Birmingham and along the Gulf Coast. Our website is providencepartners.org, and you can reach us any of the working days.
Whether you're dreaming of a retirement with sand between your toes and a cold one in your hand, hitting the road to chase the winds of adventure, or spending time with your grandchildren, this show is intended to help you get there. Welcome to Coasting in Retirement with your host, Josh Knoll. You've worked too hard throughout your career to spend your retirement worrying. So sit back, kick up your feet, because we've got lots of financial tips and tricks to share to help you get exactly where you want to be. Here's Josh.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome in. Welcome to Coasting in Retirement. That's right. Thanks for joining us today. We're excited to have you. Josh Knoll here, joined by the one and only Michelle Lee Melton, the honey nut to my Cheerios, the whipped cream to my strawberry shortcake.
That's right. Made some last night.
That's right. How you doing?
I'm doing well. Kind of quasi-sad because it's the end of summer. But in football,
to you, it's the end of summer as far as
a new season begins.
Yeah,
football season.
because football's going.
War Eagle.
For the rest of us, we'll still be enjoying the warm weather all the way through September.
Oh, I'll be enjoying and suffering the warm weather.
Very
but
good.
It will be at Jordan-Hare Stadium.
Well, we are back again, Coastal College's recording studio, beautiful downtown Fairhope, ready to put together another great show for those of you tuning in. So listeners, Michelle and I are here today to discuss financial topics relevant to those of you in or near retirement, living your best life along our part of the Gulf Coast. Here's what we've got in store for you today. First segment, deep dive on our topic of the day. Second segment, about 25 minutes past the hour, Michelle with the news of the week. Then roughly about 45 minutes past the hour, stick around for our third segment. We call it Josh's Crystal Ball and Big Mouth. And that's right, it's a big mouth. So buckle up. We got a lot to get to. Now, quick background on me for those of you new to the show. Again, my name is Josh Knoll. I'm a fee-based financial advisor. I hold my FINRA Series 65 securities license, and I'm the owner of Gulf Coast Financial Advisors. We are an independent investment management and financial planning firm. We have offices in Fairhope, Orange Beach, and Mobile. You can find more information on me and Gulf Coast Financial Advisors by visiting our website, gulfcoastfa.com, or feel free to give us a call at 251-327-2124. Now, if you just missed that contact info, do not worry. We repeat it several times throughout the show. So, Michelle, this past week, you and I cracked open an old horror movie.
That's right. We brought some from the vault.
From the 90s, Interview with a Vampire.
Yes.
Right? Now, for those of you not familiar with Interview with a Vampire,
you're crazy.
It stars Brad Pitt and Tom Cruise.
Among others.
Among others, that's fair. It's based on a book by Anne Rice.
Late, great Anne Rice.
Right, and it's set mostly in New Orleans. So
yes.
Now, to be fair, I mentioned this, Michelle, I do hesitate somewhat to reference this movie because there's obviously certain elements that many people would find distasteful. It's obviously a little gory and bloody. But I would argue that it's relatively tame compared to what's on TV today.
For sure.
And I do think it does a great job of showing what 1800s New Orleans probably was like, at least to some degree, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm also not ashamed to admit that I have read quite a few Anne Rice books, including what I consider the best one, The Vampire Lestat. That somehow Michelle is not read yet.
I was busy reading Stranger in a Strange Land and other things like that.
All right, fair enough. Well, it's on your reading list to get done.
I'm going to do it in October.
Very nice.
Spooky
for Halloween
time, yes.
Oh, perfect. All right, so the point of bringing up Interview with the Vampire, the movie, is that it gave Michelle and I the inspiration for today's episode. It's titled, How to Recognize the Vampires in Your Life, ... and ways to shed the light on them.
And natural light.
Natural light, yeah.
That's what matters.
Yeah,
Fake artificial light doesn't phase
we
them.
learned that through the movie too, I think.
I knew that already.
Now, of course, we're not talking about real blood-sucking vampires. I don't
Or
think.
are we?
Do those exist, Michelle?
I think so.
Maybe.
I hope so.
If they do, they're in New Orleans, would be my
That
guess.
is absolutely correct.
But we're going to be talking about more reality-based vampires. I'm talking business partners that suck you dry, personal relationships that drain you of your life's blood, and most important or relevant to our listening audience, the vampire-like activity that sometimes occurs in my industry, financial services, that is often inflicted on the investing public without them maybe knowing. In fact, some of y'all may be unknowingly paying thousands of unnecessary fees in your investment accounts to these financial vampires. So our episode today will give you the information that you need to recognize these bloodsuckers before they get their fangs into your money.
Uh-oh.
All right. Now, the idea of using vampires as a show topic is also timely for a brief personal story that I will share. Regular listeners will know that while Gulf Coast Financial Advisors has always been its own standalone business for many years now, up until April of this past year, I was affiliated with a larger company, or RIA in industry jargon. This larger RIA provided back office and compliance support, investment management, portfolio, trading services, and they did a great job. During my time with this RIA, I often worked with a fellow advisor that shared this mutual affiliation. Now, per Michelle's request, no names will be mentioned, but a little context to the working relationship I had with this advisor. Because I have a track record of marketing success, and to be fair, he did not, it was up to me to discover, nurture, and introduce new client opportunities. Then he would come in and provide planning services in areas where he had more expertise than I did at the time anyway, okay? It worked reasonably well for the past 4 years. But when I formed my own RIA, Gulf Coast Financial Advisors, and I broke off from the larger company, the red flags that I had ignored over the years became issues that I simply couldn't ignore any longer. And I finally realized that my energy and my time, Michelle can tell you this for a fact,
yes,
was being sucked,
ad nauseum.
was being sucked dry by someone that I naively thought was on the same page with me, but unfortunately I was just a means to an end. So,
Food.
Right. Once that working relationship was terminated, I saw the real fangs come out, and fortunately no blood was spilled. But it became crystal clear to me that I had let an energy and a financial vampire get too close to me. Or as one of my favorite clients said when he called me up, "Hey, Josh, your buddy is a vulture." So I share this story because my bet is that many of you can relate. As a kid, I spent a lot of time on my grandma and grandpa's pig farm. My grandpa had a saying, "Pigs get fed, hogs get slaughtered," which Michelle loves that saying.
I'd never heard it before. I like it. It makes sense.
It's an old country saying. Pigs get fed, hogs get slaughtered. And unfortunately, a lot of people that can't recognize when they're making the transition from being a pig to a hog, that their greed may result in short-term gains, but more often than not, it leads to long-term losses, including my opinion, the lack of close relationships. Greedy people, energy vampires, financial bloodsuckers, these people can exist both in your personal and your professional life. The frustrating thing is that they often don't recognize themselves for what they are. That would require introspection. Well, and that's really not a common trait.
Or maybe some form of a mirror, and vampires can't see their reflection.
Maybe there we go.
Right? Okay.
And what happens, just like with a vampire, when they're starving for blood, these kinds of people often resort to desperate and manipulative acts that they somehow justify with these moral gymnastics that I've just literally have never been able to understand. So now, to be fair, you listeners do not tune in to hear me air dirty laundry or sound like sour grapes. And kudos to Michelle to make that where it didn't sound too petty. But has always been the case with the other vampires in my life. Getting them out of my life always results in bigger and better things, a clearer path ahead. So as Forrest Gump said, that's all I got to say about that. Pretty much any business person or entrepreneur has had a working relationship go sideways. And for me, it reinforced a lesson that Michelle has hammered into my head over the past couple of years. One, it's okay to be a half glass full positive person, which I am, but don't be Pollyannish, right?
That's right.
And two, get your agreements in writing.
Yes.
There you go. Yeah.
Amen.
The attorney over there. So let's pivot to what you all do need to be aware of, the financial vampires in my industry. The first thing you need to recognize is that while the general public may lump quote-unquote financial advisors like me into one pile, The fact is that there are several differences in how we make money. In fact, many people that use the term financial advisor are not being legally accurate, but that's not my battle to fight here. It's for the sake of time. Let's just call all of us advisors, okay?
Okay.
For example, there are insurance-based or insurance-only licensed advisors. There's commission-based advisors, or more accurately, those would be called brokers. There are hybrid advisors. There's duly registered advisors. There's fee-based advisors. There's fee-only advisors. It's a lot. It's quite a mess. And when I finally get the Coasting Retirement book finished, which I made huge progress on this week, I'll have a whole section dedicated to explaining these differences more in full. But for now, and again, for the sake of time, let's divide these advisors into two broad camps. First, those that accept commissions on the sale of securities, like, for example, Class A mutual funds or possibly variable products. An example there would be a variable annuity. And then the other camp would be those advisors that operate in a fee-for-service model with the management of their clients' investments, okay?
Okay. 10-4.
The fee-for-service model may actually not ring a bell because, again, we're referencing Hollywood movies here. And if you paid any attention to Hollywood movies about my industry, you would think that all financial people are commission-based because that's what's always depicted.
Yes.
For example, think...
And not well.
Not often well, right?
Yeah.
So think Wall Street or The Wolf of Wall Street.
Even worse, yes.
Whew, that's a rough one. Or even The Big Short, which is adult movie, no violence, but there's still a lot of commission brokers doing things in that movie. And while these traditional commission-based brokers still exist, the retail investing world has been moving steadily and inescapably towards the fee-for-service model over the past several years, at least on the consumer-facing retail front. Now, we keep referencing the fee-for-service model. It's fairly simple to understand. What it means is you pay your advisor directly, either in the form of a asset under management agreement, it's known as AUM because we do acronyms for everything, or with a financial planning fee, or with an hourly rate, not kind of akin to an attorney, if you will. And sometimes there's a combination of all three depending on the situation. No matter how the fee is delivered in a fee-for-service model, though, it never comes directly from the company whose product was just sold. Any pay is received directly from the client. And what this does is it helps eliminate a lot of conflicts of interest, particularly in situations where one product may pay a higher commission compared to another nearly identical product. For example, we mentioned Class A mutual funds just a minute ago, right? Some Class A mutual funds, and what Class A mutual fund means that there's a sales load paid at the beginning when the mutual fund is sold, okay? Some of those may have a higher commission rate than other mutual funds that do the exact same thing, right?
Okay.
There's no law that say they ought to pay the same, okay? Or if you want to reference insurance products, some insurance companies offer higher commissions on products that you can get for a better price from a different carrier, right?
All right.
Okay. Now, while I say all that, I want you all to understand the fee-for-service model is not a perfect model, but there is a reason, at least to the best of my knowledge, Hollywood has never made a movie about a scandalous fee-based or fee-only advisor.
I don't believe that.
We looked. I couldn't find one. It's not that it doesn't happen.
I don't know about that.
Not in the real world. Things, again, just because they're fee-for-service doesn't mean they're holier than thou. But the movie, if you did make a movie about a fee-only advisor, I'd hate to tell you all this, probably not going to be very interesting. There's just a lot less shenanigans that the advisor can get his client into when the client controls the pay structure, right?
All right.
Understood? Now, one may ask, what type of advisor am I?
Good question.
Good question. The most accurate description would be fee-based. So what that means is I can only operate in a fee-for-service model with my client's stock market-based investments. The only way that I can operate when I'm managing my client's investments is if they pay me directly, again, through an asset under management fee, through a financial planning fee, or through a project-based or hourly fee. However, regular listeners know I came up on the insurance side of the industry, so historically, I've handled the risk management needs of our comprehensive financial planning clients, right? But here's the thing. This represents a potential, doesn't mean it's an automatic conflict of interest, but it represents a potential conflict of interest. And let me explain. Any vendor that I've ever used over the years will tell you that historically I have ignored commission rates. In fact, I get made fun of. Michelle didn't know this, but they tease me a lot.
Is that right?
Because in the past, I never knew what I was getting paid. Didn't know what I was getting paid, didn't care, just got paid, moved on, right? But so when I did that so that it wouldn't flavor my choice on choosing those products. But even with that, patting myself on the back. It still can present a bad look if the product I chose had a higher commission rate than a similar product, right?
Sure.
That's fair. So to eliminate this potential conflict, several months ago, I made the decision to bring a guy that I trust probably the most in this business. That's Jay Stubbs. He's the director of Gulf Coast for Providence Partners. Many of you all may recognize Jay. One, he's very well known in the Mobile area along the Gulf Coast. And two, he has been a frequent co-host on this radio show, right? And so we brought him on as Gulf Coast Financial Advisors Risk Management Strategic Consultant. Now, Jay doesn't work directly for Gulf Coast Financial Advisors. He is a director for Providence Partners, but he has a more formal relationship with our business than what I was able to do in the past. Jay has a 25-year plus track record of always putting his clients' best interests first. And I would argue Jay is certainly no vampire. Would you agree?
I agree with that.
Yeah.
Yes, I support that.
Yeah, he's a good man. And based on, put the good man part to the side, just based on my clients' feedback that have worked with Jay, it's worked beautifully. And by doing that, it's helped eliminate some conflicts of interest, potential conflicts of interest in our practice. And it's also allowed me to focus more on my clients' financial planning and investment management needs. And to be fair, just full disclosure, Providence Partners also sponsors this radio show. So obviously there's some deep ties there.
Sure.
And we're huge fans, right? So we always make sure anytime
Likewise, I'm sure.
I think so. Anytime we always refer somebody to Jay and Providence Partners, we make sure that it's crystal clear that they are sponsors of this show. Okay. Now, so what we're going to do with all this, Michelle, in our next section, we're going to explore this idea of financial vampires in our industry and what we can do to shed some natural light on them.
That's right.
Yeah. So listeners, if you like what you heard about how our business is structured with the fee for service, or if you're just curious about learning more, again, just because we're fee for service, it doesn't mean that we are perfect. But what it does mean is that we are committed to operating our clients' best interests. So if you'd like to chat, please give us a call. You can reach us at 251-327-2124, or you can find us on our website. That's Gulf, like the Gulf of Mexico, Coast, FA, as in financialadvisor.com. Now, when you're on the site, you can choose to send us a direct message. There's a couple places to do that. Or if you want, you can click on the blue button in the upper right-hand corner. It's a Calendly link. That will set up a 15-minute introductory phone call on my calendar. And for those of y'all that do that, make sure to include your phone number. The appointment automatically gives you my phone number. Either way is fine, whether I call you or you call me. Probably works better if you call me. So, all right, did that all make sense? What do you think of vampires, Michelle?
I mean, I appreciate the vampires, Anne Rice-style vampires.
Which ones? Anne Rice style?
Yeah, like the sexy ones that are running around, like in period outfits and stuff like that. I like that.
As opposed to what's
the financial or energy ones. And I work for the government, so we have a lot of public meetings. And you might say that I might be an energy vampire to some people that have to attend those meetings. Or I attend those meetings, and some people, those meetings are energy vampires to the people that have to present at said meetings.
Yes.
So anyway, I'm pro the ones that, dress in period clothing and
as opposed to, what was the other well-known one that lived in the castle? What was that one? Oh, good grief.
Oh, the Nicolas Cage, I thought.
Whatever it was.
The funny one, Ryan?
Not the funny one. The one where the guy's really creepy looking. Anyway, I digress. Yeah, there's lots of different kind of vampires.
Dracula.
Michelle loves fashion, so she loves fashionable vampires.
That was with Winona Ryder and all that back in the day. It's a good movie, though.
I like it. All right, folks, coming up next, there's always a lot going on in the world, particularly the world of finance, investments, and money. Every week, Michelle and I scour what she calls the interwebs for financial articles related to our topic of the day, especially articles that pertain to those of you in or near retirement. I think Michelle and I were both a little taken back on how easy it was to Google search financial advisor vampire and get a ton.
I thought this was going to be a silly topic.
I did too, but stay tuned after the break to see this. Yeah, the topic is delivering. Join us after the break for Michelle with the news of the week. Stay tuned.
A multidimensional financial services company, Providence Partners serves the needs of independent insurance, financial, and employee benefit professionals. The team at Providence Partners serves other business professionals like property and casualty agencies, registered investment advisors, community banks, and benefit brokers to assist in their clients' risk management planning. Whether an individual or business owner client, this planning includes income replacement protection, planning for extended healthcare costs, family needs, and generational transfers of wealth. At Providence Partners, we give you access to industry specialists. Those specialists focus on business succession, business owner planning, family and household protection, estate planning, planning for that income loss, or planning for long-term care solutions. Providence Partners is an Alabama-based company. We have offices in Birmingham and along the Gulf Coast. Our website is providencepartners.org, and you can reach us any of the working days.
Welcome back to Coasting in Retirement. Your host, Josh Knoll here. So as we discussed before the break, every week Michelle and I scour the internet for financial articles related to our topic of the day, especially articles that pertain to those of you in or near retirement. Our job, or at least we think it is to help you all understand how these headlines impact you, especially when it comes to your money. So quick note, if you want to read our referenced articles yourself, we include the links in our show transcript, which you can find on our website, gulfcoastfa.com, under the podcast tab. We upload our episodes every Monday after this show airs on Sunday on FM Talk 106.5. But without further ado, here's Michelle with the news of the week.
All right, Josh, our first article, is from The Motley Fool. It's titled So Many Hidden Numbers, How Advisors Give Their Clients the Vampire Treatment.
There it is.
Right. This article is not kind to advisors that receive commissions for the sale of securities at all. The article quotes one of your heroes, Josh Brown, another Josh of Ritholtz Wealth Management, and the author of several financial books. When Josh Brown was asked, does the commission model ever work out for the client? He responded bluntly, no qualifiers. The end.
Right.
I've learned a ton about your business through co-hosting the show, including that many advisors plant their flag more for marketing purposes than for their actual client's best interests. So I want to ask you, is paying a commission when buying a financial product really that terrible after all?
Okay, well, so let's do this to be fair. There are both good and bad, or vampires, if you will, exist on both sides of the industry. So in the beginning of the show, Michelle, we talked about the two broad camps in our industry. There's the one that receive commission on the sale of a financial product. That's a really broad bucket I'm building there. And then on the other side, there are the ones that receive a feed paid directly from the client for investment management services. Okay. Now, and then of course, to muddy the waters, there's advisors that get both. Hybrid advisors, duly registered. Okay. And to be fair, there is really good people on both sides, and there's knuckleheads on both sides, right?
So you wouldn't say there are any good vampires?
There's no good vampires.
Okay, thank you. All right.
So, but the fact is that I agree with Josh Brown for the most part. The fact is that there really is no need for the average retail investor to pay a commission on the sale of securities anymore, because there's simply too many low-cost and or no commission options out there, especially with the rapidly growing exchange-traded fund world, ETFs. Okay, so let's do this, Michelle. Let's talk about the evolution of our industry, because this will help explain the question on why Josh Brown. Because Josh Brown, you don't know this because this first time you heard me mention him. I'm a huge fan of his. He started out, his title of his blog was The Reformed Broker. So there you go, right? So he started on Wall Street and didn't like what he saw, split off.
Sorry, he reformed is already happening, not recovering.
Reformed broker.
Okay.
And as he will tell you, he was not invited to the party. So one of the things I like about him is in New York City, and he sounds like a New York City guy, he has carved out his own lane, and now when he talks, people listen. So back to the evolution of our industry. So originally, and I don't know how many years ago, but let's say for certain, at least through the 1980s, most people in our industry were stockbrokers. They sold individual stocks for a commission. I think the legitimate part of the movie Wall Street, where there's a bunch
Gordon Gekko.
Well, not that part, but where there's a bunch
on the floor,
a bunch of desperate dudes, constantly on the phone in front of computers pitching investments to prospects.
3 computer screens.
Right. Now, while the mutual funds, which are a collection of individual stocks, if the individual stock of one company, a mutual fund will have stocks of several different companies. While mutual funds have been around for decades, I believe the first modern mutual fund, was invented in the 1920s. It really wasn't until the late 80s and the early 90s that brokers started evolving into more what we recognize today as advisors, and they started using mutual funds more than individual stock sales. Now, calling them advisors is kind of like saying Cro-Magnon before Homo sapien, but they were still recognizable as advisors, okay?
All right.
Most mutual funds, particularly back then, carried a sales load. So you heard us reference, listeners, you heard us reference Class A mutual funds, which would pay a sales commission up front. Let's say that the commission was 5%. You bought a mutual fund for $100. $95 would go into the mutual fund. $5 would go to various parties, including a part of it going to the advisor that sold the mutual fund. Got it? All right. This space, the mutual fund space, started to evolve as well, particularly with a guy that is regarded as the godfather of the no-load, low-cost index mutual fund. Some of you all are shaking your head or nodding your head already. You know where I'm going with this. John Bogle of the Vanguard Group. If you ever heard the term Bogleheads, he's what started that. Low-cost index funds, no-load, low-cost index funds. This evolution eventually led to the creation and the rise of exchange-traded funds, ETFs again, which were by design no-load, low-cost index funds. But they had certain traits that differed from mutual funds. Are you still got me? Stocks, individuals, sales, securities, stocks, bonds, packaged now were in mutual funds, and not the mutual funds or individual stocks went away, but ETF, if mutual funds walked, so the ETFs could run. If that makes any sense, right? Fast forward to today, and by far the most dynamic and growing section of our industry are ETFs. After starting again, they started as relatively simple indexing products. What is indexing? Indexing is where the S&P 500 you've heard of, or the Dow Jones.
Yeah.
Okay. So the S&P 500.
2 of 3 were up today.
Right. They jumped around a little bit. NASDAQ was
when
down.
I checked at 11.
So the S&P 500 is a collection of 500 companies, and there's a vetting process, and it doesn't always stay static. Sometimes companies get dropped, sometimes new companies get added. But the indexing is basically you're saying, I'm going to own an index fund that holds in the same, or at least close to, very close percentage of these individual stocks that are the 500 individual stocks that are held in the S&P 500. Does that make sense? So you're not trying to buy the needle in the haystack, you're buying the haystack. And then what you're doing is you're hoping that the S&P 500 or whatever index you're tracking is going to go up and to the right over time. And because the S&P 500 or the Dow Jones or the NASDAQ already does the heavy lifting of selecting these stocks for you, in theory, then you should not pay a manager a whole lot of money to simply mimic what someone else is doing. That leads to a low-cost index fund, okay? Now, the ETFs, over time, again, they started as low-cost indexing products, but they have evolved. They serve all types of investor needs now. And if you all want to learn more about ETFs, go back in our catalog and find the episode I did with J.D. Gardner of Aptus Capital Advisors, who, among many things, has a handful of ETFs that they originated and manage. But the ETFs did these things historically at a lower cost than mutual funds. So to answer your question, Michelle, if an investor... I'll answer your question with a question.
Lovely.
If an investor can get a lower cost ETF with no sales load that does near or possibly even exactly the same job as a more expensive sales loaded mutual fund, which one is arguably, all things considered, in a vacuum, which would be the more suitable pick for your investors' need?
Whichever one doesn't cost them more money.
That would be ETF.
Thank you.
Generally speaking. All right. So that's why this article is so harsh on commissionable securities products, because there are simply more affordable options available today.
Is this the one with the numbers, though, when it talks about the female advisor and it had or is that another one in this?
That's a different one.
Okay.
Yeah, that's coming up.
Okay, good. Because that one's pretty persuading.
This is fair.
Yes.
All right.
Okay.
What's next?
Okay. So next up, U.S. News and World Report. They have a very recent article titled "What to Know About Financial Advisor Fees and Costs." Okay, I'm not gonna lie. I gave up 2/3 of the way through this article, maybe not even that far, because it is very dense.
Yeah, this is one I found, to be fair, listeners.
Yes. Yep. I like brevity, but okay. If this is what the chapter on advisor fees looks like in your Coasting Your Retirement book, I'm probably not going to read it. So just skip over that one.
I'll read it to you.
The 60-page.
If you have insomnia.
Yes, put me to sleep. Okay. To be fair, I did recognize a lot of the terms you used when describing the different types of advisors just now, and more importantly, how these advisors are paid. So to our listeners, I think you should definitely read the entire article, take some breaks, pack some snacks. I'll just rely on Josh to brief me on it. So this article mentions a recent Harris Research poll that revealed that 71% of Americans have bought a lottery ticket, guilty, and 24% of millennials said they've spoken to a fortune teller. I've actually done that too, but I'm not a millennial. But just 33% of Americans have spoken with a financial planner. I've done all three, just for the record.
You live with one.
Yes. So that seems accurate, those stats. So
Right.
what was your main takeaway from this article?
Well, first, I agree with you. It's a very detailed article.
Very long article.
Yes, but I found it for a reason. I would highly encourage investors, particularly those of you in or near retirement, particularly those of you that have never worked with a financial advisor, to read this article or find a similar article. Because it may seem like a trifle thing about how your advisor is paid, but how he or she is paid can have huge long-term consequences on the success of your portfolio. One of the very first questions you want to ask an advisor when you're interviewing them is, how are they compensated? All right. Now, let's say you ask that question and they say that they accept commissions, or maybe they're a hybrid advisor, like we mentioned earlier, that can accept both commissions and fee-for-service pay. That doesn't mean you need to stop the meeting and walk away. Again, there are incredibly talented and honest advisors out there that accept commissions as part of their pay structure or do both, but you need to be aware of the differences, especially if this advisor is a regular user of annuities in their practice, especially if this advisor is a huge fan of fixed index annuities, or FIAs for short. Again, we'll make sure I'm clear here. I'm not saying that if an advisor uses annuities, this is inherently a bad thing. But the one thing that most investors would be surprised about is how high the commission rates are in the annuity world. So again, how is the advisor paid? You want them to be able to answer that clearly and concisely. And to be fair, when that answer is provided on annuity sales or any insurance product, it's the insurance company that actually pays the commission to the selling advisor or the selling producer. The money technically does not come out of your pocket, you as the buyer. But typically, the higher the commission, the longer the surrender period or lockup period for your money, and potentially, and is just as important, the potential lower the overall performance of the annuity. The other problem is that commission is paid up front. Typically, it's paid up front.
Okay.
When we do them now, we do it where it's a level fee over time, because where a fee-for-service model is an ongoing small percentage, the typical insurance product sale is going to be commissioned up front. Again, I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm just telling you all, know these things, because there is less financial incentive to service your account after the sale is made if they get all of the commission up front.
Yeah.
Fair?
Yeah.
So,
that totally tracks.
So here's the bottom line, Michelle. By far, the most transparent and easy to understand compensation model is the fee-for-service model. And to be fair to you fee-only advisors listening, because I know you do, to be fair, the fee-only is without a doubt the easiest to understand.
Right.
The client pays the advisor directly. There are no commissions involved that can be convoluted or hard to calculate or understand. There are no incentives for the advisor to try to find something that pays him or her more for the work, because all pays the same. It's a level fee.
Mm-hmm.
And it puts the client and the advisor in lockstep with regards to investment performance. Client does better, advisor does better. Very good.
All
What's
right.
next?
Okay. Well, speaking of financial vampires, I know you have a particular disdain for annuity salespeople.
No, not just annuity salespeople.
I didn't finish.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Yeah.
Dot.
Okay.
Okay. And so you have a particular disdain for annuity salespeople that gloss over the important details of the insurance contract.
Thank you.
You agree with that?
I do agree with that.
Okay.
Yes.
So I thought we should include an article about annuities. Plus, after wading through the industry jargon from our last article about advisor fees, very long, I wanted something shorter and easier for my pea brain to understand. So I took a look at our friends at Kiplinger, haven't talked to them in a while, and found this basic article titled Annuities, 10 Things You Should Know. So just like Josh Brown we spoke of earlier with sales-loaded mutual funds, annuities also have a well-known enemy that frequently puts them down in the name of Ken Fisher.
Yep.
Is he the guy that does the commercials?
He is, yeah. Fisher Investments.
Okay.
Yeah, he's independent. He's huge. It's a huge company.
Independent IRA Fisher Investments.
And to be fair, Michelle, he used to do all the commercials, but he got himself in a little hot water over some things he said about Japan a few years back. So he has other people do the commercials
Konnichiwa.
now. Yeah, it wasn't great, whatever he said. I don't remember. But keep going. Sorry.
Okay. So Ken is quoted as saying, "I die and go to hell before selling an annuity."
Right.
All right. So the rest of the article doesn't seem that bad. So why do some advisors hate annuities so much? I will say this one also talks about SPIAs, which are some of my personal favorites. I just like saying it.
Well, you're stealing my thunder now. So,
oh, dang.
Yeah.
Okay.
So first with Kim Fisher, I think it's fair to offer at least one mild criticism in that I believe part of his fervent opposition to annuities are a little bit part of his sales gimmick, to be fair.
Okay.
Because in my industry, we know him pretty well. He's known as a little bit of a blowhard. He's known as he's
not a vampire, but a blowhard.
He's a confident man. Let's just put it that way.
Okay.
And I'm not saying he's being disingenuous, but
most vampires are very confident.
Well, yeah, he's
convincing.
Yeah, Kim Fisher is very proud of being Kim Fisher, but he knows statements like these will generate headlines, so he lets it rip. The problem is that millions of people depend on annuities for stable, lifelong income. I mean, have you ever heard of a pension? Right?
Oh, yeah. I'm going to have one.
Not all pensions are funded by insurance companies, but many are. Many pensions are funded and managed by insurance companies, and they do it through using annuities. But back to answer your question. The first thing people need to know is that saying all annuities are bad, like Ken Fisher does, it's like saying all car models from one manufacturer.
All Mini Coopers are bad?
Well, that's I don't know about that, but it's like saying all car models from one manufacturer are bad. You're lumping everything in together. There's many different types of annuities designed to fit different client types, needs, and sizes. There's what Michelle referenced. There's single premium immediate annuities. SPIA is one of her favorite acronym to say. Mm-hmm. There's deferred annuities. There's multi-year guaranteed annuities. Those are called MIGAs. Those function similar to a bank CD, so on and so forth. And we talk about these at length on both on our blog and on the radio show. Just look in the past when we talk about annuities. That said, when advisors like Kim Fisher rail against annuities, typically they are referring to a couple different classes of annuities. Typically, they're referring to variable annuities and fixed index annuities. Okay. And so here is why so many fee-only, which Kim Fisher's fee-only, here's why so many fee-only and fee-based advisors don't care for variable annuities and fixed index annuities. They're complicated. I mean, even the people selling them will tell you.
Okay.
They
don't have maybe a full grasp on them either.
Their basic premise is easy to understand with FIAs, fixed index annuities.
It's fixed.
It's fixed to some degree. Let's talk about that. On a fixed index annuity, you are not directly invested into the market. What you're doing is, remember we talked earlier about an index, S&P 500?
Yes,
let's
NASDAQ,
use S&P 500. The annuity is tracking that index and watching the performance over what's called a point-to-point. Now, typically the point-to-point is 1 year, 12 months from the date of the contract of the annuity to exactly 1 year after that. Did the S&P 500 do better than when you bought the annuity, or did it do worse? Okay. Let's say that the S&P 500 over that 1 year did worse.
All right.
Okay. If you were invested in the market, directly in the market, and you were all into an S&P 500 index fund, and the S&P did worse, what happened to your money?
Right. What happened?
It went down in value.
Boo.
Okay. A
vampire took it.
On a fixed index annuity, what they say is we will have a 0% floor. Even if the index is below, when you bought the policy, you're not going to lose any money.
You're not going to lose it. I get it.
Right. All right. So what's the trade-off?
What is the trade-off, Josh?
The trade-off is, let's say that index you're tracking, the S&P 500 in this example, goes up 12 or 15 or 20%. In exchange for that 0% floor, the index is going to have what's called a cap rate.
I see.
It's only going to allow you to participate so much in that gain. Generally speaking, around 6 to 8%. Now,
all right.
You index guys are listening to me. You can call me up or email me and beat me up on that. But that's a general part of it, right?
Okay.
But even with that simple premise, the mechanism of the actual product, and especially the variable annuities, is they're complicated. They tend to be expensive to the client, especially over time. They usually have a high commission, which is not the end of the world, but it is paid up front.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there are level fee annuities, and that's one of the things we're definitely exploring and getting into with Jay, because when your advisor, people are people, human nature. When they get all the money up front, and then now they're super busy, and there's no more money to be had out of your relationship.
Yeah, I mean, it's just
human nature,
yeah.
right? And probably again, back to what you said, people, my specific irritation is when they are sold, when these type of annuities are sold without a full understanding of the details on the investor's part. Because I'm going to tell you right now, most of the FIA sales guys are really, really talented at this process. I mean, they are good. And Michelle knows me well enough, and hopefully you listeners are getting to know me, that I don't have that ability. I mean, I can smooth talk a little bit, but not like that. Now, FIAs in particular are the fastest selling annuity product on the market today, and they do have attractive features, like I just mentioned. They have a 0% floor on them. But all too often they're sold through a process that skims over too many details. Now, here, bottom line, listeners, if you have an annuity or considering buying one, do yourself a favor, give us a call, 251-327-2124, and we'll walk you through what you're getting into without a bunch of sales pitch speech.
Well, do you think that they're still, they're on the up and up still, these annuities? Because that article mentioned that 2022 was a big year for them. It's 2024 now,
yeah,
so I don't know if it's kept on going up or if there's data
as long
to
as you're
support that
dealing
or what.
with a reputable company, then here's the thing, Michelle. There's two rules that I operate by when I'm using any type of these products. One is you never trust your client's full account value or even a heavy percentage of it to an insurance company. And two, that is because at the end of the day, the insurance company may perform at or close to what they promised, but if things ever get in trouble, the insurance company is going to protect their bottom line before they worry about you.
Yeah, I'm well aware of that, painfully.
Period. All right.
Okay. Oh, right. I also said that Social Security was kind of annuity, which I like to be reminded
It's
of
similar.
that.
Yeah. It
So
pays
that
out
made
like
that
an
like that
annuity.
little,
Yeah. That's fair.
reference. Okay. So the last article of the day, Josh, and I pulled it from your website.
There we go.
So it didn't go too far. Figured I would make you put your money where your mouth is, not where your fangs are, because you don't have any. And to be fair, it's not really an article. It's more what I think they call a landing page.
That's
Is that
correct. It's a landing page.
Proper nomenclature?
Yes.
Okay. The page is called
It's a memo. I'm just kidding.
Memorandum.
Memorandum. Yeah. Jerry Maguire.
TPS report.
Yeah.
The page is called What It Means to Be a Fiduciary. Just like with our radio show, I see how you try to educate people on the different types of advisors and why being a fiduciary what it means, and why it's important. Plus, you put in writing some of the conflicts of interest or potential conflicts of interest we discussed in our show opening. And so, what does it actually mean to be a fiduciary? I know the answer, but some of the listeners may not. And how does this relate to investors protecting themselves from financial vampires?
Well, I'm actually kind of proud of myself because I wrote this landing page. It's been a minute since I wrote it. And in my line of work,
taking one from the vault?
I mean, it's actually still pretty relevant, pretty accurate. I'm sure it's pissed off a few people in the industry because most people don't
Should we add that to the crystal ball section?
Maybe, because a lot of people don't want the average investor to know how the sausage is made. I don't know why.
Ew.
It's just easier in today's world. Just tell people what's going on. It's so much easier.
It is easier.
But yeah, fiduciary in itself. So let's make sure we're clear. I had this conversation earlier this week with a client. Fiduciary in itself means that you are legally obligated to operate in your client's best interests. Now, Michelle, with her law degree, and me as a fiduciary-based financial advisor, will be the first to tell you, at the end of the day, those are just words. So how can you have the structure set up so that your words, you might be the nicest person on earth, but how does the structure back up what you're promising on as being a fiduciary? And so the landing page you reference, I go through the history of fiduciary. I go through the different, what we talked about earlier, difference between brokers and advisors, and I go through the different types of securities licenses that in my line of work, Michelle, with the securities license that I have, I only have one way to manage my clients' investments accounts. I don't have any wiggle room to operate outside of being in their best interest. Doesn't mean I do it perfect, doesn't mean I don't make mistakes, but at the end of the day, does it pass the legal test? If I was sitting in a courtroom and the judge asked, did you make these choices based on what paid you more or what was in the client's best interest? It's easy answer because it all pays me the same at operating the best interest. All right, very good. That was good.
All right, so one of the takeaways is fee only does not equal fee based.
There is some differences, and we
Yes,
talked about that,
we did.
and we'll tackle it again more.
Okay.
But we are, and savvy listeners, just so you know, we are how you say that? We're moving ever closer to. I'm closer to the fee only world at this point than I am the fee based. It's just becoming up in the insurance side of the industry. There's a lot of legacy stuff there that.
Sure.
For me to be accurate when I'm describing the services, for me to be honest, it's fee-based. But we're moving ever towards the fee-only world. Well, very good with the headlines as always. important pieces of information that impact those folks in or near retirement. So listeners, if you want to continue the conversation with us, why don't you give us a call, 251-327-2124. You can talk to me at that number. Michelle will tell you. I answer the phone. It's kind of fun. You can even call, you call after the show airs on Sunday. I'll answer it on Sunday because I can tell when a radio show lead's coming in. Or if you want to set up an appointment, go to our website, gulfcoastfa.com. Blue button, upper right-hand corner, puts a 15-minute introductory phone call on my calendar. All right, folks, coming up next, Josh's crystal ball and big mouth. What have been some of my predictions?
Landing page.
Have I been right? Was I ever wrong? How wrong? What do I think is going to affect investors in the near or distant future? We talk about all these things and poke a little fun at my big mouth. Stay tuned. Whether it's building a business from scratch with your own two hands and wanting to maximize the financial impact of those sacrifices, or growing a great nest egg by being a dedicated and reliable worker for years, or choosing to live a life well within your means in order to accomplish a lifelong dream of retirement, the last thing you want is to go with the wrong financial advice after you've worked so hard to accumulate your assets. You've also probably spent most of your life putting others' needs ahead of your own, and now it's your turn. We can help. Gulf Coast Financial Advisors is a locally owned, independent, fee-based financial planning, investment management, and tax planning practice. We have offices in Fairhope and Orange Beach. We serve all of Baldwin County and the Gulf Coast. We also have an easy-to-understand fee-for-service model with no sales quotas, no proprietary products. Our ultimate responsibility is to our clients' goals and dreams. You can reach us at 251-327-2124 or find us online at gulfcoastfa.com. That's GULF, like the Gulf of Mexico, Coast, FA as in financialadvisor.com. Welcome back. Your host, Josh Null here, alongside co-host Michelle. So I'm opinionated. I have strong opinions at times. I would say a radio show host that isn't probably wouldn't be very interesting to listen to. And I'm paid in my profession to offer professional guidance and opinions to my clients. Otherwise, what use would I be? Just replace me with AI. So now sometimes I feel so strongly about something, I talk about it publicly. Sometimes I'll even make predictions. And while I feel I'm usually proved right, there are times I swing and miss. So if you want to hear me eat a little crow, let's talk or pat myself on the back. Let's get at it with Josh's crystal ball and big mouth. All right, Michelle, what's first?
Well, in case you haven't heard, we have a presidential election coming up this year. Mm-hmm. Actually, in a couple of months, we get to vote. I didn't notice. I'm just kidding. You want.
Yeah,
everybody go out and vote.
Inescapable.
Okay. I know you have clients that are concerned about the outcome, even expressing a desire to exit the stock market entirely depending on the outcome. I think the word extreme volatility,
there you go,
very hard for me to say, guys and gals, is being used when referencing this particular upcoming election. Yes, it is. But you have always held that investors should be politically agnostic, especially in the long run. So what proof do you have that investors should not make their decisions based on whomever gets elected to be the next president of the United States of America?
Well, oh my God, I love this question. So, and I'm going to have a totally unexpected answer for you, Michelle.
Oh.
All right. So we referenced a financial advisor hero of mine earlier in the show,
JB.
Josh Brown of Ritz-Holtz Wealth. I hope he's listening. We're going to send this to him. Huge fan, Josh, if you're listening. Well, Josh Brown recently posted a study regarding this topic that you just referenced about president, and that I find it fascinating.
All right.
So let me walk the listeners briefly through the main point of the post, the study. An analyst, and this was all very recent, an analyst did a study of the stock market performance using which party held the office of president over the last 70 years, starting with Eisenhower's election in 1953. Got it?
Okay.
Now, if you just did it for the last 70 years, that's easy. Just what did the market do, right? So instead of just saying, how did the market do under the back and forth of the in power party during those 70 years since the 1953 election, he framed his study this way. If an investor put in invested $1,000 in the stock market, and I believe it's S&P 500 index fund he was referring, but if he did $1,000, a person investor, $1,000, 1953.
Okay.
And they only stayed invested in the market during his or hers party affiliation being in power as the president, and then going to cash when the other party was in power, what would happen with that $1,000? Okay? So
Ooh.
hey, listen up. According to the study, if you only invested when a Republican was in power, your original $1,000, fast forward 70 years, would now be worth $27,400, right?
All right.
Not bad. But if you flip the script and only invested in the market while a Democrat was president, that same $1,000 would be worth almost $62,000 today.
Well.
Now, that goes totally against the common perception that Republicans are more business friendly, right? And he did preface that I didn't realize this, but there's been more Democratic presidents the last 70 years than Republican. But I want you to stay with me, because I'm not saying we are politically agnostic here. And I may be slow at times, but I ain't stupid. I know many of our listeners lean right. Here's the really fascinating part of this study. If that same investor had invested $1,000 in the stock market in 1953, ignored whoever was in power, was the president, and simply stayed in the market, not gone to cash when his or her guy was not, or gal was not the president, stayed in the market, do you know what the value of that account would be today?
I'm going to guess it's a whole bunch more of either one of those numbers just because they wrote it out.
Okay, so it was $27,000 for Republican.
Almost 62.
62,000 on Democrat.
For the Dems.
If you ignored who was in office, and this is not me just making this up, this was a study, $1.69 million would be the value of that $1,000 today.
Okay, well, I'm pretty excited about my laissez-faire attitude when it comes to
who's the president.
Yeah. Or in my finances, I don't really fluctuate that much, depending on whatever's happening.
I don't know how much more clearly I can demonstrate that it's all about time in the market, not timing the market.
Yeah.
Listen, I know no matter what happens, whoever gets elected.
Pretty cool.
Well, you have one more question, right?
I do.
Okay, go ahead.
But I'm fascinated by that.
That's fascinating.
I know we think he's fascinated 4 times now, but I mean, I wouldn't have thunk that.
And listeners, we on the show transcript that'll be on our website tomorrow, Monday, the day after the show airs on Sunday, we have a link to that study if you want to see it.
Sure.
It is really fascinating.
I just wouldn't have thought the number would have been that big. I feel like it'd be bigger, but not.
It just
that
shows you
big.
when you're out of the market half the time. The power of, what did Einstein say? The most powerful force in the universe is compound interest. And that's what you're missing out on. All right.
Okay. A friend had a boat named Prime Interest.
I like it.
I like it too. It had percentage signs. Anyway, okay. All right. So with all that being said, who do you think's going to win the presidential election in November, Josh?
I ain't touching
that one. Do you have
one.
A prediction?
I ain't touching that one.
Are you writing yourself in or anyone else?
That's not a bad idea.
I know.
Here's what I know. It'll be close. And half of
America. It's going to be wicked close.
And half of America is going to be pissed off. These are 2 things that I know.
Okay.
Now, but more importantly to you listeners, especially you investors, there's 2 things that are more important. First, irrespective of who ends up winning the president, all right? So let's put politics to the side. These are the 2 most important things. First, we've just demonstrated that you should ignore political outcomes for going into or out of the market, right? Mm-hmm. Math is math.
Yep. Numbers.
Second, as far as I have heard, neither of the candidates or even the political parties are making the federal deficit an issue, which means that the U.S. government will continue on its path of printing more money and issuing more debt to finance our federal budget deficit. Because again, how do you close a deficit? You either raise taxes, increase productivity, or you decrease the services and entitlements you give to people. Good luck having that as your party platform and winning anything.
That's a stinker.
That's right. And if they're going to print more money is like water. It wants to flow somewhere. So as long as our monetary policy stays the same, which has been on average an increase of 7% in monetary supply every year for the last 40 years, more and more dollars will be flowing into various financial instruments, including at some point the stock market. Does that mean that the market will go up forever or not experience some turbulence? No, but it's something to consider. Monetary supply means more than the average investor realizes when it comes to performance of their investments. Now, folks, if you want to learn more about that, especially how at Gulf Coast Financial Advisors we incorporate monetary supply into our investment philosophy, we invite you one last time, reach out to us, 251-327-2124, or you can make an appointment or put some on my calendar on the website, gulfcoastfa.com. Well, folks, that's it for us this week here in Coastal Retirement. I want to give a huge thank you to my lovely co-host, Michelle Lee Melton.
You're welcome.
Yes, crowd goes wild.
Woo!
Thank you to our show sponsor, that's Providence Partners. Thank you to
Yes.
our awesome radio station, FM Talk 106.5 out of Mobile. Many thanks to the provider of our show music, that's local band Sloth Racer. Huge thanks to our show producer, that's Mr. Chaz Reyes Gray, as he is serving as a mentor to my son, Peyton Null, who is coming up as the show producer, doing a great job on our other podcasts. And as always, my sincere appreciation for all of you out there that have been listening and joining us on this journey. We would love to be part of your journey as well. Till we talk again next Sunday, have a wonderful and productive week. This has been Coasting Retirement with Josh Null. Gulf Coast Financial Advisors, LLC, known as GCFA, is a registered investment advisor offering advisory services in the state of Alabama and in such other jurisdictions where it is registered, filed the required notices, or is otherwise excluded or exempted from such registration and/or notice filing requirements. Registration does not indicate or imply that GCFA has attained a particular level of skill or ability, nor does it constitute an endorsement of the firm by the Securities and Exchange Commission, the SEC, or any other state securities regulator. The Coasting in Retirement radio program serves mainly to disseminate general information, including those pertaining to GCFA's advisory services, together with access to additional investment-related information, publications, materials, and links. The publication of this radio show should not be construed by any client and/or prospective client as GCFA's solicitation to effect or attempt to effect transactions in securities, nor should be interpreted as GCFA providing personalized investment advice or any type of professional advice for compensation wherever this program is broadcast. Any subsequent direct communication by GCFA with a prospective client will be conducted by a representative that is either registered or qualifies for an exemption or exclusion from registration in the state where the prospective client resides. Certain information, news stories, headlines, data, charts, graphs, figures, or statistics presented on this radio program may have been obtained from third-party sources that are believed to be generally reliable, but which GCFA may not have independently verified. GCFA does not and cannot guarantee the timeliness, accuracy, or reliability of any such third-party information and undertakes no obligation to update or correct any information that may become obsolete, unreliable, or inaccurate. This radio program also contains the opinions, views, and perspectives expressed by Josh Null and any other GCFA representative, which are solely their own and do not necessarily reflect the opinions, views, or perspectives of GCFA as a firm. Such personal views and opinions should not be construed as endorsements or professional advice from GCFA. GCFA makes no representation or warranty regarding the accuracy, completeness, or reliability of any information on this radio program and disclaims any liability for any direct or indirect loss or damage incurred from using or relying on such information. GCFA and Providence Partners are not affiliated, nor are any of their respective representatives.
A multidimensional financial services company, Providence Partners serves the needs of independent insurance, financial, and employee benefit professionals. The team at Providence Partners serves other business professionals like property and casualty agencies, registered investment advisors, community banks, and benefit brokers to assist in their clients' risk management planning. Whether an individual or business owner client, this planning includes income replacement protection, planning for extended healthcare costs, family needs, and generational transfers of wealth. At Providence Partners, we give you access to industry specialists. Those specialists focus on business succession, business owner planning, family and household protection, estate planning, planning for that income loss, or planning for long-term care solutions. Providence Partners is an Alabama-based company. We have offices in Birmingham and along the Gulf Coast. Our website is providencepartners.org, and you can reach us any of the working days.